Welcome to another episode of the Rosefellow Podcast. My name is David. I'm Vice President of Sales and Business Development. Today we're exploring our unique non-silo approach to development that basically ensures seamless integration across all platforms. Let's meet our panel.
Thanks, David. John Papagiannis, Chief Operating Officer at Rosefellow. Tell you guys a little bit about what I do here. So I'm Chief Operating Officer. I oversee essentially high-level managerial tasks in the company. I kind of share those tasks with Mike and Sam to a certain extent. And then everything that is internal home base, running the company, the bones of the company, I'd say. So everything that is accounting, finance, legal, admin, running everything in the office, HR, I guess you could fall through, all that falls into my purview.
I am Brian Banks, Director of Construction here at Rosefellow. So I manage everything to do with construction, from due diligence, design coordination, scheduling, budgets, all the way through to delivery to tenants, all the modifications, office build-outs, making sure we have a great product to offer our clients and partners at the end of the day.
John, can you explain our non-silo approach at Rosefellow and how it influences our operations?
Sure. So I'd say this is an important tenet of our business, and it all stems from our need to be very quick to react. Where we pride ourselves in being a very agile, nimble company. I think that, frankly, is one of the differentiators of Rosefellow. So in order to do that, we've implemented a non-silo approach, and that I think there are two aspects to that. There's an external one and an internal one. Externally, we certainly work very closely with a number of our consultants. And so again, I'll take an example. We start a project, we tie a site up, we will work very closely with our GC, architect, urban planner, or biologists, legal, etc. And everybody kind of sits around the table early on, right as soon as we tie up a site, make sure that everybody understands the vision that we have for the project. Everybody identifies the risks that we potentially can have on this project. And it really is, the idea is really to allow for an open flow of communication. Communication is key in this business. And so this is the way we frankly have found to run a project from inception all the way to delivering the project, is to have a constant open communication between all of these stakeholders, make sure nothing slips through the cracks. So that's worked for us very well. That's the external part. I'd say there's also an internal non-silo approach, which is, again, in the departments of this company, between leasing, development, construction, accounting, finance. All of these departments need to constantly speak to each other. And that's something that is new for me. I came from a very large organization, similar to you, David, and in your past life. And so this was new, because there was, I wasn't used to this. I was used to a lot more structure, and here we have structure, but we favor open communication. There are no landlines here. You don't pick up the phone and call somebody. You get up from your desk, you go see the person, you ask them the question, or you grab a couple people, you go into a conference room, you resolve the issue as it comes up. And that, frankly, has been very successful, I think, addition to the way we operate, and it allows us to, again, react very quickly. And I'd say that that's part of our secret sauce. This was super important to take this approach, particularly at the peak of the market, when we used to tie up a site and have 30 days to due diligence it. I mean, we did not have time to do the exhaustive due diligence that we would have liked to do. So we really had to pick our battles, and in order to do that, we really needed to have everybody around the table at the same time, speaking the same language. If we didn't do that, we really would have dropped the ball somewhere. And again, that is the most important thing that we need to avoid is missing anything. Of course, like I've said, every one thing that you can miss, that'll cost a lot of dollars down the line to us as developers, to our partners, to our investors, to our lenders. And so it's certainly not what we want to do.
Yeah, you know what? I will add to that. I think what's really cool is because of the non-siloed approach, first of all, there's full transparency, right? Just use the example of we get an RFP, we're all in the room, we're all looking at it, we're all talking about numbers together, we're all talking about next steps, strategy, and so on, whatever the case may be. Everybody knows what's going on. And it funnels down to communication, of course, but I also think it makes everybody feel valued, right? Because in a bigger, larger organization, not everybody's in the room. It can't work like that. So because of the structure that Rosefellow has put in place, it allows for us to be lean and mean. It allows for everybody to be in the room and have their say. And I think when you're in the room, you feel more important, you feel more valuable. And I think that brings even more horsepower to the table. Everybody wants to pull their weight and then some because of the fact that we're all in this together.
That's probably a reason also Rosefellow will never be a 200-person organization. We won't be able to have the same approach to our business. And so I do think that is that's part of the Rosefellow way is, like you said, stay lean and mean.
Yeah, for me, this non-silo approach is great because we have such an incredible team. We get to learn from each other. And we're also passionate about what we do, that it's easy and it's fun. Like, I like to know what legal issues you might be battling, John, or, who are the new prospective tenants for our sites. And sometimes it's very helpful because I can jump in and, have my 2 cents or feel valued in giving my opinion or advice. And same for you guys. Like when we're talking about the construction issues on Monday and someone jumps in, okay, but, for this tenant, we have to do this, or, it's important that we're all on the same page. Everything's so fast tracked that we don't have time to play catch up.
What we do is a team sport, as far as I'm concerned, right? I've always said it, it's somebody in my role. I'll work with John in making a deal happen. And then someone like Brian will be involved in that process. But then Brian's going to live with that deal. And our ability to basically turn around and demonstrate to the market that we do what we say and we say we do, and so on and so forth, comes down to everybody doing their job. So as far as I'm concerned, we all need each other to a certain degree.
When you bring me in to meet a tenant before the lease is signed, I'm starting to build that relationship with them. I'm starting to understand what their requirements are, legal perspective as well. I'll know the details of the lease, what the budgets are, what the constraints are. And then when it's signed, I can hit the ground running. I know what the requirements are. We'll build it out and meet the schedule and targets.
Yeah. If we've worked on a lease in our finance department, or Brian, if it's on one of your projects, if you're not in the loop and you don't understand you haven't seen what the deal is on paper or understood it, and then maybe the tenant also understood something different. Time comes for the tenant to get the keys. I mean, that's not a very fun thing. So everybody needs to speak the same language for sure. Maybe just one last thing on the non-silo approach. I guess one of the other important things that we do here as part of that is on Monday mornings we have our team all hands meetings in our big boardroom, and that's really just running through every single project. Very high level, but just to make sure everybody knows exactly what the key pain points are or issues are that we're seeing, make sure that everybody understands what the vision is and what the next steps are on each project. Are we going for financing? Are we trying to close a tenant? Are we trying to buy the site? Whatever it is. And so that, I think, helps also everybody in the organization to just make sure that they know what's going on. And things move so rapidly in this business that helps, because I think there's somebody perhaps in the finance team who might not have heard something that happened on the previous Wednesday. Well, that all hands team meeting allows everybody to really be up to speed in terms of what's going on.
A good example of the non-silo approach was our Kirkland project. Obviously, we have our standard stakeholders on each file, but that one was exceptional. We had the residents behind, the houses behind the site. We had the REM in front of the site. We had city services running through the site, and then a challenging site itself from a construction perspective because of soils and topography. So to be involved in the project day one due diligence and to know what those challenges are, to work with the city, collaborate with them to know what their expectations are, really helped us expedite the file. We bought the site, and then I think 5 months later we started construction, which is incredibly fast for a project of that scale. And if we're not all on the same page, if, it doesn't matter how fast I am at, getting ready to start construction, if we don't have financing in place, or if we're not going to get permits, we all need to be on the same page and know what's going on for each file.
I won't name any specific site, but I mean, we are working right now on some large potential acquisitions, which again, there's no way to get around a site like that, these types of projects that we're looking at without having a non-silo approach. It's just, there are so many factors to consider. Obviously, again, you have a short window to complete your due diligence, and so every single professional needs to be in the know in terms of what our vision is for the project, and make sure that everybody understands what their deliverables are, because on a project of this size, you really can't mess anything up like that. I for having dealt with clients in my past who did not have a non-silo approach, what you realized was people internally within the organization were not speaking to each other. So myself, being a third-party external consultant at the time, I was disclosing things to one person which they should have been aware of, and that's just because there was no communication between person A and person B within the same organization. So you see a lot of that, and again, if that if in this case I'm the one who's communicating things as a third party, I'm sure there's a lot of things that are going to slip through the cracks, and that means there could be significant mistakes on a project.
When you're in a bigger organization, or where everybody does have their own respective sandbox, everybody has their own objectives, right? And what's good for them. And I find that the more that you're siloed, the less you're put in a place where what's good for you is good for me. And by the fact that we have a non-siloed approach, we are all aligned on what we want to do, right? We all have the same objective, because at the end of the day, what's good for you is good for me, what's good for you is good for me, and so on and so forth. When you end up in a place where there are silos, you end up having a lot more conflict between those silos, because one silo is going to say, no, hang on a second, my objective is this. And then the other silo is going to say, well, my objective is that. And then next thing you know, just spinning wheels. And then working in big organizations like you, John, and then all of a sudden it becomes an internal negotiation, right? As opposed to what's in the best interest of the organization is to close that deal, right? So I think that the benefit, again, non-siloed approach, we're all rowing in the same direction.
It's difficult to implement this type of approach in an organization of 200 people. It just can't work. It works for us because we are less than 20. And like I said, we're going to probably remain that way for a while. So I'd say, it's not for every organization.
I think you have to be built the right way for it to work. Otherwise, you have to go through material structural changes within an organization to get to that non-siloed approach. I think the benefit that Rosefellow has is that it's been built from the ground up with that intent in mind, and somebody else who's more siloed, who wants to go to a non-siloed approach, everything needs to change, and that's not easy. Thanks for taking time out of your very busy schedules, guys, for being here and being part of this podcast.
Thanks for having me on, David.
Thank you, David.
And then you drop the Dr. Dre. Boom.